Okay, good morning, people. Well, hello, people. This is Two Legs Better. And I want to, the past weekend, um, something significant happened if you follow American football because it was the game, the Thanksgiving weekend. It was the game between Ohio State and Michigan. It has been played for 121 times, dating back to early last century, and it's a great tradition. And I'm a Buckeye fan, so I'm part of that tradition. And after that, the Buckeyes won, and not just won, they dominated the game. And so I'm extremely happy. But then yesterday, I guess I watched too many of those or something. My neck really, really hurts now. So I almost decided not to do this episode. But, some things in life just you want to preserve them. And otherwise, it just goes by real quickly. So I still decided to do this. So now that's this episode. This episode, I don't want to talk about the things that everybody is talking about. That's like the game and other things, what it meant or something. I want to talk about some of the stories of the people. For me, I'm a big picture guy, so I look at things from a long-term perspective, a bigger picture perspective. I think what happened on the field today is not decided today. It was decided years ago. So, and that's how I see it. I think it's good to look at people's stories, how they get to this point, and that's much better. A lot of people are caught up in the moment. It's like, wow, this is what they did. It's so amazing. How did they do that? Well, how did they do that? It goes back way over, in the past. Now, I want to talk about some of the stories that really I followed and that really moved me. So, my neck still hurts. I cannot really move my head. It's just it hurts really, really bad. It's really, really bad. But I'll try to get through this, okay? So now, let the story fly. First, I kind of want to explain myself a little bit. I live in New Zealand now. I was at Ohio like almost 20 years ago. Actually over 20 years ago. I was at Ohio, but I left Ohio, but I never got back. So if you are a Buckeye fan, you look at my hat, you're saying, well, that's not a Buckeye hat. That's not a Buckeye cap. It's very true. And you look at the shirt, you see the color is wrong. This is not the Buckeye color. This is the Yupen color. It's, I got it for different reasons. So, but that's because unfortunately I don't have Buckeyes gear here in New Zealand. It's just so far away, so remote. So I often joking said, I'm the most knowledgeable football fan in the southern hemisphere. Well, American football, not the soccer. But whatever. So please don't be mad at me, and I'll try to get one when I have a chance. But I think this is appearance matter. But whatever. Now, I live in New Zealand. I don't know how many. If you're a Buckeye fan, if you're an American, how many of you have been to New Zealand? Let me show you how remote New Zealand is. You see that they literally have a Wikipedia page talking about how New Zealand was omitted from the maps. This is so funny. It's like you read in the news, say, "Oh, we are omitted from the maps again. The world forgotten us." Yeah, well, it's kind of true though. So, and it's very, very far. If you know, it's in the southern hemisphere. It's in between Australia and South America. It's Antarctica. So, but anyway, so this is where I am, and so I'm talking about the Buckeye stories from here. Now, let's back to the Buckeye stories, and the first one I want to talk about is the first player I want to talk about is this man. Well, I call him a man, but he's a very young man. He just had his 20th birthday coincidentally on the game day on last Saturday, that's the day they beat the team up north. So, and this is Jeremiah Smith. This is what I pay attention to. Okay, so you probably, if you follow football, when in that year, that's in late 2023, that's the time, that's the signing day. In signing day, the recruitings, they send in their recruitment letter. So they sign it saying, okay, I'm coming to your school to be your school athlete. But for some big names, some big time athletes like the top 10s, the 5 stars, they have lots of choices. And so it's not uncommon for the last minute somebody comes in to say, okay, I give you this much money or some benefits, you come to my school. I know you committed to that school, but come to my school. I give you something better. So for a person like Jeremiah Smith, he was the #1 recruit in the country that year as a wide receiver. That's not very common. Usually it's a quarterback and maybe a defensive end, but it's for a wide receiver to be #1, that shows you how special he is. Another sign how special he was is when Ryan Day was at the podium for the press conference, his letter wasn't in yet. So you think about it, Ryan Day as a coach. But then at the time, somebody comes in to whisper to Ryan and say, Jeremiah's letter is in. Ryan was like, really? And then was like, almost lost his footing. It's like a big sign of relief there. That's how important this one person is, this one player. But remember, this is only just a high school kid. He just graduated from high school. He hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't played yet. Okay? And then he came onto the campus. And everybody had got a chance to see him on the practice field. Almost everybody was like, who is that guy? He doesn't, he looks like a senior, but I never heard of him. And then people say, oh, that's the freshman. Wow, okay, that's a freshman. But still, he hasn't really done anything yet. All his things was in high school. College is a different animal, okay? You can be, I know these kids, they can be really over their head, think they are, bigger than life. They're just, big deal. I mean, it's very easy for a person like him to he's the number one in the whole country, Some people say he's generational. Well, but, and then for the spring game, the reporters asked Smith for an interview and saying, oh, I want to interview you. You know what he did? He brought the whole wide receiver room, all of them, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, and everybody else go with him. And then he literally stand behind everybody and put Emeka Egbuka at the front. Do you know who Emeka Egbuka is? If you follow American football, you know that he's first-round draft pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's one of the best players now. He's doing really, really well there. But he wasn't like that at Ohio State. He was the #1 wide receiver in his own group, in his own high school recruiting. But he wasn't the top recruiter. He was like a 10 or something. But it was Ohio State. He came in with the guys like Chris Olave, Gary Wilson, Jackson Smith in Jigba, and then he came in together with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he was never #1 at Ohio State, never. Before that point, even after that point, after JJ came in, he was at most the #2. That was behind Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin was great. Marvin was, at the time, he was the greatest, I would consider, I would say, wide receiver ever been to Ohio State. But JJ doesn't say that. JJ doesn't come out and, punch the chest and say, yeah, I'm the #1. I'm going to take over. I'm, college is, He didn't do all these shit. He just come out and say, I'm the freshman. You want to talk to the whole group, and this is our leader. This is Emeka Egbuka. That's our leader. That's our big brother. And then after, at that time, I felt great. I was like, wow, this kid is special. This kid is like, it's all business. It's not about me. I haven't done shit yet. And then in the, for all the teams, they have the spring workout and a fall camp and everything. And especially in spring, they have the weight room. It's not about football. It's not about the weight room. The weight room basically train you to prepare you for the long season. It's a violent sport. You got to put your body in the best place. For the Buckeyes, every year they would Mitch, the strength coach would select people as Iron Buckeye. What does Iron Buckeye means? It's basically the strongest Buckeye. You can push the most. You can jump high. You can run. It's physically you're the best. Think about it. You're the best out of big time athletes. Out of 100 people, big time athletes. It's a great honor. It's really a great honor. The current left tackle, Austin Cerevel was, and Lincoln Kinghouse was, and the other one is Jeremiah Smith, 18-year-old freshman, the first year become Iron Buckeye. That, if nothing else caught your attention, that should give you an indication what this guy is about. This guy is about work. I'm just a graduate from high school, and I haven't done shit, and I need to do everything. Okay, they tell me to go to the weight room to get myself ready physically. Okay, I do that, and not only do that, I excel. I become the best over these 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and I'm the best. You think about that, and then there's still the question, can he perform on the field? And the first game, he became the lead receiver and never looked back. Remember I talked about Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka last year still became the second, the second wide receiver at Ohio State. And who was the first? A true freshman. It's just mind-boggling, okay? So this is Jeremiah Smith. And I also want to, I don't want to make this like a diss thing or something, but I want you to think about some school up north. They bought a quarterback who wanted to play at Louisiana State. He was the #1 recruit, a quarterback, flashy and all those shit, They spent $12 million on that guy. And you know what the first thing that guy did? The guy went to a basketball game to taunt at LeBron James. LeBron James, everybody knows who LeBron James is, and he's also a very, loyal Buckeye fan. And he came there and he said, Ohio is done. Ohio is finished, to the face of the king, King James. It's like, that makes me laugh. You are 18 years old and you have potential, of course. You may be great, maybe, but you haven't done shit yet. You start to talk shit before you have done shit. It's just it's the kind of person you have. Compare that to JJ Smith, So I don't know. When I saw that, I was like, all right, let's see. If you want to pay attention, you just pay attention. You go to the team up north, you follow them, you see how that quarterback turned out this whole year, and what's his stat the whole year. Not just he's a freshman, but so is Julian Sain. Julian Sain is a redshirt freshman, one more year, of course, but and this is the 12th game, the 14 weeks of the season. Okay, where's the progression? Where's that? Another comparison is compare that guy to Nico Iamaleava. The Tennessee quarterback that went to UCLA. You can say whatever you say about that guy, Nico, his toughness is it's just there. The Buckeye fans, the Buckeye players saying, he just come back time and time again, even when he was down. That's toughness. And that's a guy you want to lead your football coach, your football team. What about that guy up north? And that team, that university up north, they pride themselves as like the smart or something. Is that really a smart investment for $12 million on a high school kid? Is it really worth it? I mean, you think about it. I know, he's a local kid, and you can't, if you have him, you have a lot of value there. But nowadays, the football world, NCAA football world, is a now business. You have to produce now. You think about Indiana. Indiana got a quarterback, and you think about Oregon. They got quarterback from other places, and they spend some money on that, and then that person comes in and produce. Even though Ohio State, they got Will Howard last year from the transfer portal. How much would that cost? Those people cost, even for Nickel is like $2 million a year. So that means you can spend $3 million a year, get the best, most seasoned, Carson or some other guys, or maybe Dante Moore. Dante Moore, it wasn't on the market last year, of course, but this season. But you get my point. My point is, you can spend that money to get someone, a veteran guy, a proven guy, experienced guy who come in to lead your team. So you don't have let the team to carry that guy, okay? So, but then for whatever reason, they spend the money on this guy. The guy turned out to be like that, and he played like that. I don't want to say too much about that team. I think that the team is young. They have lots of freshmen. Again, if you spend the money on, getting the offensive linemen, getting some wide receivers, maybe you can do better, or maybe not. I don't know. It's, they have done pretty well. They won 9 games, So, well, whatever. So I'm just saying, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just saying, right? Now, so this is the Jeremiah Smith. So that's the first guy I want to talk about. And now let's move on to the next guy I want to talk about. The next guy is, Julian Sain. Okay, so who is Julian Sain? Julian Sain, he's a California kid. He grew up in California, Southern California, between San Diego and LA. He was next to the coast, to the sea. He's a beach boy, he's sunshine, he's look at him. He's, he's a young guy. Can you associate him with the tough Midwest kind of a thing, a tough guy like that? So he was the number 1 quarterback, but not the number 1 recruit. Not even the number 1 quarterback if you look at others, like Dylan Raiola and a couple other people, also ranked high. Sometimes some people, some places rank them higher than him. But he was one of the top quarterbacks recruit in that year. And then he committed to Alabama. And then Nick Saban retired, and then Kalen DeBoer reportedly couldn't pronounce his name. I thought it was it was probably intentional. Kalen DeBoer probably didn't think too high of him. That was a sign, and at least he took it as a sign, I believe. So he decided to transfer. Now, I want you to think to put this into context, okay? Dylan Raiola, he first signed with Ohio State, not signed. I think he committed to Ohio State, but then he knew he wasn't going to start right away, to play right away. And then he said he's going to commit to Georgia. and he wouldn't be able to play there right away either. And then he decided to go to Nebraska. I don't know what was the real reason. Was it because Nebraska paid him more or promised him to play or something? I don't know. I don't care. But I probably both. You can play and you get paid. I don't want to make it sound like a bad thing. It's a decision. When you are 18 years old, if you are getting paid $1.5 million to be the leader somewhere, Nebraska is a big time program too, You probably, be tempted, very tempted, but not Julian Sain. Not Julian Sain. Julian Sain thought, okay, I need to go to a place that's going to develop me, not just he came to Ohio State. Ohio State at the time had just brought in Will Howard and had one senior in Devin Devin Brown, and another sophomore in Lincoln Kingholz, and they were all promising. And then they had another 5-star or 4-star, high 4-star quarterback came in as well. So Julian come in would be the 5th guy. You're the 5th guy. You were not really highly recruited by Ohio State, but he knew Ryan Day's track record. He knew Ryan Day was great, So he decided to come. He wasn't afraid of competition. I'm sure he wasn't promised much. He was promised the opportunity, of course. If you come in, you perform, you move up. And he did. He came in, become the 3rd one, the backup to Lincoln to Devin Brown. So last year, it was Will Howard starting quarterback, and the backup was Devin Brown, and the 3rd string was Julian Sain. Of course, there were a lot of talking, saying he should be the backup, but still, you're a young guy, and it got to be frustrating to him at some point. You thought you can help. You thought you are that good. You look at Dalen Riola, doing the fake 15 thing or real 15 thing or whatever, whatever. So, but and he's a big time athlete and he's great at football and he did that. He just learn and watch and learn. Just be quiet and watch and learn. Just do your thing. And then it came this year, and this year, the way he performed, okay, I think a lot of people, you may not understand how difficult it is. You think about Will Howard. Will Howard was in his 5th year or 6th year, I think 5th, and he played a lot of football. He had up and downs in his career, so he was mentally tough. Still, he was like he lost the quarterback competition at Kansas State. I'm talking about Will Howard. And he wanted to go to Oregon and he was rejected. Oregon said, we want to go a different route. We want a different person. We don't want you anymore. You think about it. And then he went to Ohio State. And all the talking in the news media and fans and everybody was like, you are coming in to drive a Ferrari, a Lamborghini. Just don't crash it. Just don't crash it. That's not a good mindset. You think about it. You borrow a Ferrari from your friend to drive it. How would you drive it? Not recklessly. You probably just drive it really careful. You can drive 200 miles an hour. You can, you can drive 200 miles an hour. You can only drive to 170 or something, because this is your friend's car. You don't want to damage that. You don't want to crash it. And that's not a great mindset for a quarterback. And it took him quite a while after a couple losses before he literally just come to the front and say, this is my team. That's how great the great run of last year's national championship became. This is my team. I'm going to carry the team. When the team needs a 3rd down, I'm going to do it either by passing or running. I'm going to do it. That's when he took over. And it's understandable. But for an experienced guy, it took a whole season, 2 losses to get there. For Julian Sain was watching that, and then he took over the program right away from the first one. The first game was against Texas. Texas was considered the juggernaut, the number one team in the country. So Ohio State basically was like, okay, just do your thing, but don't go wild. We'll protect you, you protect the team. Just don't do anything stupid to lose the game. And with the limited chance that he did, Jeremiah Smith dropped two passes in that game. And Max Clare, the all-world tight end, the transfer, dropped his first target. If I were Julian Sain, I would be frustrated. I was like, what the hell, guys? I thought I can count on you guys. But he never really flipped. He was like, all right, okay, let's come back and we do it again. To be fair, the whole team was that approach. Okay, fair, let's do it again. Things happen. And then the defense was great, of course. And that keep things, good. And then, Connor Tate, that's the guy I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And he had that touchdown catch and then the Buckeyes won that game 14-7. So it was great. And remember that game was all about the quarterback on the other side, the Arch Manning. People almost gave it the Heisman to that guy already before he even started the game, the season. But it was Julian Sain just outshine that guy. So you think about these two guys. For Jeremiah Smith, he's just a humble number one draft. He's not that humble, he's still a kid. He's a competitive guy, he's humble in some ways. Humble is a bad word. I think he's respectful. He's respectful to his brothers and to his, to the game basically. And then you have a Julian Sain. Julian Sain, just a smart guy. He knows when to wait and when to stand up, and how to keep your cool. And it's just amazing watching this guy play. I'm very confident he's going to get the Heisman. He's going to win this weekend against Indiana, which is also a great team. Really, Indiana is another great team, and I have a lot to say about that team as well. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. But that's a great team. Indiana, you got to respect that. You got to respect Kurt Signati. You got to respect, Mendoza. You got to respect the whole program. The whole team. It's a great team. This week the conference game is going to be a great game. But now, not this episode. In this episode, I want to talk about the stories of the Buckeyes. Now, I talk about Sain and JJ. Now, all of these were because of this man. This is Ryan Day, the man. 7 years ago, he took over the program from Urban Meyer. Usually in the at least in the past, the first 10, 20 years when I was watching the game, the football games, the people leave because they suck. Usually it's that way. Maybe you were good for a while, but then you suck and then you gotta leave. But not for Urban Meyer. It's because of some other issues and because of health issues, and then he had to leave. So he decided to hand the baton to this man. He picked this man. They didn't even do a search or interview or whatever. They just give it to this guy who never had a head coach experience before. You talk about being handed a Ferrari, for an inexperienced guy, the first time guy, but what I like him is, the first 3-4 years I kept defending him because he kept losing in the big games, but the thing is, he did everything in the right way, in the way that I like. I thought he was building a paradigm, building a dynasty rather than just focusing on one game. Okay, I repeatedly said he was the unluckiest head coach in the history of football in the first few years. Think about it. in 2019, he had Justin Fields and that defense and J.K. Dobbins, and then they lost to Clemson. That was a fluky game. It was a weird game. It's just so many things went wrong just against the Buckeyes. And then the next year, that was the COVID year. It was just funky in another way, and they did beat Clemson in the semifinal, but in the final game against Alabama, which was also a great team, but he didn't really have the horses, like 20-some players cannot go because of the COVID protocol, So that was a weird year. But then after that, it was the team up north thing. I don't want to get into that. But then there's four losses. Last year's loss was really, really, I thought it was just unfortunate. They missed the 2 field goals, and the quarterback was knocked out a little bit in the first couple of series, and I think it has a lot to do with it. But it wasn't concussion level to pull him out, but I think it affected him. Anyhow, so, and then eventually, after last year's, people say infamous. I wouldn't call it infamous, the student, the player-led meeting. I would call it the famous, the famous meeting. That after that meeting, the team turned around and he won the national championship. And then after that, it was just brilliant. It was beautiful. And I think he built the program the right way. He tried to put together the coaches the right way, the players the right way. I mean, think about all the decisions he made. Last year, people say, Ohio State bought the team. No, they didn't. They got transfers, but they got Julian Sain and Caleb Downs because these two wanted to be a Buckeye. Literally, they wanted to be Buckeye. So they came in. It's not like they were lured by money or some other things. They didn't really want to be a Buckeye. They just came in. And then they went out and got Will Howard and only a couple more others. That's last season. And this season, they got 2 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman, and 1 tight end. And I think that was it. That's the people from the transfer portal. I might be forgetting 1 or 2 people, but CJ Donaldson, the running back. That's the experience needed in the quarterback room. So the thing is, it's very targeted. It's very non-flashy in a way. It's not like they just go after the biggest names out there. No, it's not like that. They very targeted. It's need-based. Whatever they need, they get it. If they don't need it, it's just they wouldn't do it that way. So that's Ryan Day. I think from a leadership perspective, from coaching perspective, he's a great coach. That's for sure. Offensive coach, he's great. But from the leadership perspective, from program building perspective, I just love the man. I think he's great. Kurt Signetti said, one day he will go down as one of the legends. That's directly from Kurt Signetti. I respect Kurt for saying that, really. Kurt himself will be a legend as well. Maybe not, I hope, well, I don't know. Maybe not as big as Ryan Day, but he will be. He's just legendary, the things he has done at Indiana. So that's really, really great. So this is the story of Ryan Day. So and the story will continue. And he is the winningest, by the way. By winning percentage, he won 82 games out of 92. It's just all time, not just now, all time. The winning percentage is higher than everybody else in the football history. Okay, so higher than Nick Saban, higher than everybody, higher than Urban Meyer. But Urban Meyer, the first 92 games actually won one more game than he did. But anyway, so he's only 46 years old. You think about it, 20 more years of Ryan Day. The Buckeye fans should be happy with that. We are thrilled with that. Now, talk about coaches. You have to talk about this man. This is, can you guess who I'm talking about? This is Might Matt Patricia. Okay, so this man, he is, people know, if you follow, you know that he has been a long time defensive coordinator at New England, helping have 3 Super Bowl rings. Okay, and he's known. He's an engineer, trained engineer, and he has that kind of approach to the game. But then he became a head coach at Detroit, and he flamed out after a couple of seasons. He's like, well, let's just say it didn't really work out for him. Then he was jobless. He became a kind of analyst for Philadelphia Eagles. And then, when Jim Knowles decided to bolt to go to Penn State, it was a big deal because last year Jim Knowles' defense was arguably the best in the country. They did extremely well, especially in the playoff run. So he went to Penn State. People were like, wow, the best defensive coordinator went to our rival. What can we do? They are going to win the national championship this year. What would Buckeyes do? This is what Buckeyes did. Ryan Day literally said, when Jim left, I thought I still have the best assistant coaches in the room, the defensive side. All these defensive line coach, the secondary, James Laurinaitis, the linebacker coaches. I just need someone to elevate the room and to work together with everybody in that room, And then he identified Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia coached at college more than 20 years ago, briefly at, I think it was Temple. So people saying, oh, he doesn't have any experience, But is that something that really the Buckeye teams needed, So I personally, I trusted Ryan Day. I thought his decisions were sound. It doesn't always work out the way that was hoped, but the reasoning was sound. The decisions were great. And then he hired this man, and and I listened to him talking, interviews, and I saw his press conferences. I was like, wow, this is a good guy. This guy might elevate the defense, and it did. You could say I've always been kind of optimistic. I try to be objective, but I'm more on the optimistic side, mainly because I look at the decisions rather than the outcome. You can be the best. I mean, the Buckeyes could lose to Indiana this weekend, but it doesn't mean what they have done was wrong. They still have done the right things, but sometimes just the things don't work out your way, and maybe accidents, or maybe the ball bounced a different way, or maybe the other team is just better. It's hard to imagine the Indiana team now, although great, better than the Buckeye team. It's hard to imagine that. But still, you never know, because, like I said, when you step on the field, the game starts at 0-0. And everybody has an equal chance to make your case. So you can never know the result. But that doesn't deny everything before that, all the decisions, And for Matt Patricia, what I paid attention was, the first one was how the players receive him. And all the things were positive. Players were like, he's just so knowledgeable. He knows everything. He can answer my questions. He listened to me. He built a relationship with me. That was great. That was much better than Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles did, he's a loner. I think it's a personality thing. Jim Knowles doesn't really talk much, doesn't like small talks, mingle with people. You can't, that's not necessarily, it's not a knock on him. That's who he is. I don't want to judge a person based on personalities. That's just who he is. But for Matt Patricia, he's willing to. You think about the people. You think about. I give you an example. Well, when I talk to the next guy, talk about the next guy. Well, why don't I talk about the next guy right now? Just kind of to show you what I mean by this. This guy, Arvel Reese. If you are not a Buckeye fan, you don't know his name before this season. You don't know who that guy is. He is a linebacker. He has been like in the background in the past 3 years. He's I think he's is he a redshirt junior? Well, so he came in to Ohio State, and he was sitting there and getting stronger and try to learn for 3 years behind all the other like Cody Simon and others, and even Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles, have been starting for a couple years already over there. You think about a guy like Arvel Reese. Now, in today's day and age, he can easily go outside and go to a, not necessarily a second tier, maybe a top tier place and start. I had no doubt. Last year, he could go to a lot of places and start. Think about it, say Indiana, maybe some SEC teams, he can easily go there and start. And he didn't. He was just, stay there and waiting for his turn. And what a turn that was, And Matt Patricia came in, and immediately they gelled because Matt Patricia wow, this guy can do everything. This guy literally can do everything. He's a linebacker. He can be a defensive end, and he can run. He can, he has long arms. He can tackle. He's tough. He's fast. He's everything. And now, after 12 games, people are talking about him as the first guy taken in the draft. Number 1 draft pick, potentially. Of course, I highly doubt it would happen because he's a linebacker. He's very valuable, but he's not even defensive end. Maybe he's more valuable that way. But usually people take quarterbacks, the first or two, draft picks. But for a linebacker, even in that mentioning is just honorable. It's great. I think he probably at least the top 3. Or top 5, he will be gone. Think about just 1 year starting, and you get there, and that's just how great it is. You just wait your turn, and you get there, and that you have to attribute a lot of that to Matt Patricia as well. Matt Patricia is leading the defense. If you look at the numbers, the last one that holds everybody under 17 points in 12 games was 1975, the Florida Gators. So that's 50 years, half a century ago. So this is definitely one of the historically good defenses there. But now that's just numbers. You could say, oh yeah, because of the opponents. Well, the opponents, they look bad because this Buckeye team is just that dominant. It's just that good. Because sometimes you can see, just check Notre Dame. Their numbers are great too, Is it because they are great or just because their opponents are bad? You think about Ohio State, all the opponents they played. But what really impressed me was I watched the games. I saw the in-game adjustment. The in-game adjustment is just Ryan Day was asked the question. Some reporters, I forgot who, asked and what makes Matt Patricia so great? And Ryan just give one simple answer. Ryan says, when something is wrong, he can explain. He can tell the players what went wrong. This is psychologically, this is a great thing. You think about your life, every one of us. You think about your life. Sometimes things go wrong in your life, but shit happens, in life shit happens. That does not necessarily mean the end of the world, right? But what really bugs people, including me or you, I have no doubt everybody, is that you don't know why. If something bad happened and you don't know why, your mind is occupied. It's like, okay, so I did something, it didn't work. Why? Is it because I suck? Is it because something out of my control? Is it because, what was the reason? And that uncertainty creates doubts, creates hesitation, it's really not good for any games. So when you have somebody who can explain it, it's they say, yeah, so you did everything right except that little thing. So, okay, does it mean you're not going to do it again? Not necessarily, but at least you know what went wrong. So just try not to do that. You'll be okay. And that, that's a great mentoring, coaching. That's just great. Like the game against the team up north, the first play was a big run. I was like, whoa, okay. I wasn't worried though. The game, I didn't really worry. Even after the interception, I was like, okay, let's see what the team does. I wasn't really worried. Last year I was a little bit worried, but this year I wasn't. So the first one, if you look at that, I think it was the linebacker. Was it the linebacker? I think the on the left side, on the offensive left side, the blocker, he went the wrong side. He went inside. He tried to get inside. When he tried to get inside, so it allowed Jordan Marshall to bounce outside, find the outside hole. I think he should have sealed the outside. He's not going to make the tackle. He just needs to seal the gap. Why? Because Caleb Downs and the others are in the middle, are like to the center, near the center of the field. If he sealed the outside, Jordan Bush will need to go inside, and he will be met by Caleb Downs and others. So the gain will be minimum, or at least minimum. It won't be that big a gain. So it's just one mistake, right? It's just one direction. It's basically you're a defender. You need to know where is the most vulnerable. You let the guy bounce outside, there's no protection. If you let keep the guy inside, you have your teammates to help you. So your job is not to tackle the guy. Your job is literally to seal this gap. So, but then, the first quarter, I think they had like 116 yards rushing. And for the rest of the game was negative 18 or something. So they end up as 100, It's, I wish it was 99. That would be really funny. But 100 is 100, it's fine. It's, but the things like these little things, you explain, you make adjustment, you tell that to the players. Players know, oh yeah, my effort wasn't the problem. It's just that I happened to do that on that side. It's the same thing for Julian Sain for the pick, the interception. The interception, if I was, I try to guess Julian Sain, okay? Normally teams will try to back up real quickly to prevent J.J. Smith from going deep. That's usually teams' first fear. I don't know whether it was by design or because that player was just not as fast. He was beaten by Smith too fast. He was falling behind. So if Smith didn't beat the guy, if the guy goes deep, back deep, then the back shoulder would be the best location because that's away from the defender and JJ can catch the ball. He won't be able to advance it too much, but it will be a good catch. That's where Julian Sain is throwing to. But because that defender was left, and he didn't, if Julian throw that one to the goal route, to lead JJ, it could be a long gain. It could be even a touchdown because he already beaten that corner. But anyway, so that's a mistake, but it's a fixable mistake. It's just shit luck, But anyway, so back to Matt Patricia. I think Matt Patricia, what I feel, what moved me the most was the relationship he has been built with all these young men. You think about it from these young men's perspective. You are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. You big time athletes, but you're also a young man. You don't know what the future holds. You think you are great, but you don't know. How the world sees you. They are kind of tough, but also vulnerable. They need answers, they need comfort, they need a lot of things. And Patricia offers that. He spent time with them, answer them questions, and talk about not just football, but also about life and all these things. And I think that's another linebacker. That's Riley Pettyjohn, and he said he talked to Matt Patricia one day more than the whole time he has been with Jim Knowles. That is really a big deal. That's really something. If you watch all those videos after the game against the team up north, Caden McDonald, you got to know who. You think about it, Caden McDonald was the nose tackle. That's one of the heaviest, the biggest guy on the team. He's like 320 pounds, big guy, tough guy. You got to be tough to play nose tackle. And he wanted to plant the flag. He got a flag. He wants to plant the flag. And why? Because last year, that other team did that at Ohio Stadium. He wanted to do that. And this man, Matt Patricia, goes on to hug him. And, and K-Mac was crying, saying, we won. We deserve it. I need to finish. I need to do that. I need to plant it. I need to, I need to finish. That's I want it. And Matt Patricia holding him says, celebrate with me. Celebrate with me. Don't forget about those clowns, just celebrate with me. Celebrate with your brothers. And this is why we play the game, to celebrate with us, not about them, And K-Mac was crying, 300 pounds, like a teddy bear. It's just so touching, And that's just a great thing to see. Yeah, I mean, if you are not a fan, it's really not that easy to imagine why this is such a big deal. And if you live in Ohio, it is a big deal. Trust me. You won a national championship, but people always come out and say, if they are nice, if they are not nice, they say, but you didn't beat that team. If they are nice, they will say, please win it this year. Either way, it's not a good feeling. And so there were a lot of emotions to that, and even Ryan Day, Ryan Day afterwards in the press room, he said, there are a lot of things I could have said about this win, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to win with humility. Just move on to the next game. I just love that. I love that comments, because he doesn't have to say it. A lot of people have said it for him. He just took so much shit in the last few years because of all these things, and a lot of things he couldn't say. He couldn't whine, come out and say, yeah, we lost because they cheated. He couldn't say, we lost because of some things happened or something. You win. I think it was who said that? It's you win, you see little, and you lose, you see less, right? Don't sound like a sore loser, unlike some people. Anywho, it's just a great thing and mature thing to say. So this man hired this man, and that's a great thing, and they did great things together, and they were hugging after the game. It's yeah. So, but anyway, and I also want to mention this guy. This is Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline played for the Buckeyes. I saw him play. There were stories about that. He literally went to Jim Tressel. He played for Tressel, and he said, "Coach, I want to quit." And Tressel was like, "Why do you want to quit?" He said, "It doesn't seem like I'm playing." And Tressel said, "What do you mean? And he said, "It just doesn't feel like it. What do I have to do to get on the field?" Tressel said, "Just practice, just practice, and your time will come." And he did, his time did come. He played in the game of the century in 2006, and He was never the most flashy guy. He's not a Gary Wilson. Gary Wilson was like he can do things other people can't. He jumps higher than everybody. He can get the ball other people can't. You see that guy Gary Wilson. You see that guy. You knew he was a 5-star. He was going to be a star. This guy Brian Hartline, he wasn't, but he was a really really meticulous worker. He was like he wasn't even the number one wide receiver at Ohio State. He was number 2. The number 1 was Robisky. And Robisky was selected in the draft before him as well. He was selected to Miami Dolphins, but he became the number 1 receiver for Dolphins for like 7 or 8 years. He did really well there. If you have to, at least in my book, I think he overachieved. But that's not a knock on him. That's because he worked hard. He did the right things. He has a brain to succeed, and that's what he did. He's not necessarily the physically, athletically the most gifted, but he managed. He did that. That's not easy. That's not easy to be the number 1 receiver on an NFL team. And then after he retired, he was like, "What do? I don't need money, but I also don't want to do anything." And then I think one of his friends is like, come to the Buckeyes and be a coach and just help out. He was like, I never wanted to be a coach. What's that about? Then he came in and started to coach wide receivers. His experience, his background, his genuine personality. I think that's the thing. The whole team coach they put together is genuine. They just don't bullshit you. It's like Brian Hartline. He became the best recruiters in the country, maybe forever. He's like, look at all the wide receivers he put together. The number 1 receiver in the country. All these number 1, number 2. They all came here and then got developed. They become the best. You think about Emeka Egbuka. He was number 2. But he could easily go to other places. And you think about Carnell Tate. I'm going to talk about Tate a little bit later. I know it's a long episode, but there's so many things I want to say. And Tate could go to, reportedly, Oregon wanted to pay him $1.5 million or $2 million or something, for him to go there. And he decided to stay put, And why? It's because of this man, And then a couple years back, he was promoted to be the co-offensive coordinator. And, Ryan Day wanted him to take over the play calling duties, but then took it away, because Ryan Day didn't really think he was ready. You got to remember, these are competitors. These are the big time athletes. They don't take a backseat to anybody. If you tell them they are not good enough, they are not going to take it well. They're going to try to prove it to you, right? But for him, he agreed. He's like, the thickness of the skin is healthy. Yeah, I try to show I'm ready, and my boss said I'm not ready. Okay, I agree. Okay. Then last year he was sitting behind Chip Kelly, and this year took the real reign. Took the reign of the offensive coordinator, the play caller. And look at the job he did this year. It's just masterful. Really, it's masterful. How they develop quarterback, how the offense, it's complementary football, of course. The defense has been great, so it gives the offense a lot of leeways. But still, look at the offense, how they run, how they pass. It's just brilliant. It's just, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are talking about all the nuances there, so you don't really need to hear that from me. It's just, but the story is here, and then his name pops up, as a Penn State coach or other coach, because any team that want to hire a head football coach, they are looking for the rising stars. He's clearly one of the rising stars. I'm not sure he's ready to be a head coach yet. And, he's a Buckeye. He played here. He's been here basically all his life. And so I'm not sure he wants to leave. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's if they win the national champion this year, well, people are going to knock on the doors to try to poach the coaches away from the Buckeyes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this is the offensive coordinator, and I can also say a lot of things about all the assistants, especially like James Laurinaitis. I saw him play, watched him play as well. So, but to keep this one at a manageable range, I will not talk about that. But there are another two guys I want to talk about. Um, one is Carnell Tate. Okay, Carnell Tate is this guy. Okay. I try to keep it brief. Okay, Carnell Tate is from Chicago. Before the start of his first season, think about it, he was 18 years old, came to Ohio State, and then his mom was shot dead in Chicago. It's just a freaking incident on the street. I think, I don't know what exactly happened, but it was like a random shooting from a passing car or something. His mother just was at the wrong place at the wrong time and got shot. I think he was raised by his mom alone. So, but anyway, it's not easy for 18-year-old to lose your mom that way. But then he found comfort in the team, and he got on the field the first year as a freshman, true freshman. He was like the third or fourth receiver in the Ohio State wide receiver room. That is a big deal. Trust me, that's a big deal, And but he was always like the third, at most the third. And last year, that was JJ number 1, Emeka number 2, and he was the third. He was almost like a blocking wide receiver, if there is one. He just does all the dirty work, and when his number is called, when the pass goes his way, he gets it. He catches it. He's just brilliant. And then get to this year. Even this year, he's still number 2. He's not number 1. Now, he plays like a number 1 though. He plays like a number 1. His percentage of contested catches is off the charts. I think he only missed 2 out of like 13 passes to him. The contested ones, like 50-50 balls. To him, he just missed 2. That's way better than Jeremiah Smith, who is widely considered the top player in the whole country, But that's for him. And he didn't really grab the money when the money was flashed in front of him. Oh, come to our place, we'll pay you a lot more than you get at Ohio State. He didn't do that. And now he has one more year left, one more year of eligibility, but I'm pretty sure he's going to leave this year. Everybody knows that. He played 3 years college football. He learned all he could, basically. He accomplished all most. And now the only thing missing is the Big Ten championship, And he already got a national champion. He won the game against the team up north and got the gold pants, So, but this is another great story. I have no doubt. I think he will be a first-round draft pick, maybe even high first round, maybe higher than Emeka Egbuka. And Emeka has been doing great in the National Football League, and he's going to be great there too. He just continues. He's a tall, rangy, fast, precise route runner. He's just a lot of great things to say about this guy. So that's him. Now, I have talked about a lot of the stories about many of those, the coaches, the coaches, the Ryan Day, Matt Patricia, Brian Hartline, and I also talk about a few of the players. And I want to finish with one more player I want to talk about, and that player is Caleb Downs. Okay, Caleb Downs is this guy. This is Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is the best defensive player I've ever seen at Ohio State. And it's just a, it's just a, it's no knock on all the other players. It's just he's just that good. I mean, Arvel Reese is also great, especially this year. But you look at Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs, physically, it's not necessarily jump out of the page. Not like J.J. Smith. Jeremiah Smith, he's Iron Buckeye. That means he's the strongest on the team, strongest than everybody on the team. Caleb is not. Caleb is, a safety, and people compare him to Ed Reed. I watched Ed Reed play, and but Matt Patricia said he's more like a Troy Polamalu. I agree with Matt. I agreed with Patricia. I think he's more like a Troy than Ed Reed. Ed Reed is just Ed Reed, his talent is off the screen. He's just flashy. When you see Ed Reed play, it's like he's the star. He's like that. For Caleb, he's not. Caleb is a general. Caleb is like the field general. I don't need to flash my wings. I only flash it when I need to. It's like the last weekend's game against the team up north. That tackle he put on that remember the person he tackled was a tight end. Caleb Downs is 6 feet, 200 pounds, maybe close to 220. That guy is a tight end. That guy is probably 6'5", 6'6", and 250, 260, or even heavier than that. So it's a much bigger guy than him. He just tackled the guy like it's nothing. It's like and it's not the first time. He does all kinds of tackles. He rarely miss. He may have missed a couple times this whole season, but he rarely miss. When he's on the player, he knows how to bring that player down. But that's not his best attribute. His best attribute is his brain. He just knows where everybody is and how to do the job and where the offense is going to attack the team, and then he will be there. And when he's there, it's basically the end of the story. It's just so smart. And his story is also amazing. He debated between Ohio State and Alabama, and then went to Alabama to play for Nick Saban. You can't really fault him for that. He liked Ohio State, but Nick Saban, he himself was a DB, and if anything he knows best, other than his, winning national championship and stuff, being the best ever, is about DBs. And then, so you can't really, this is a great choice for Caleb Downs, smart choice to play for that guy. And he became the starting safety for the team the first year in his freshman year. It's just amazing. And he was the leading tackler on the team. By the way, you don't want the safety to be the leading tackler, because if the safety needs to tackle, that means the offense is getting to the third level. Because the first level is the defensive line, the second level is the linebackers, the third level is the safeties. Generally, you would hope, you stop them before they get to the safeties, but whatever. And then he, when Nick Saban left, he transferred to Ohio State. He chose Ohio State, and what a difference did he make? Last year, you talk about Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator last year. Jim Knowles is a genius himself. He knows about the schemes, he knows about defense, but he doesn't do that for the players. That's the difference between Jim Knowles and Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia is who do I have, and then I find a scheme to fit my players against the offense I'm facing. You can see that, almost every game is kind of different. Jim Knowles was like, I know this works the best, so you play it my way. But the thing is, he is not playing himself. He needs the players to play. That's why people like Arvel Reese, like C.J. Hicks, didn't really work that well in his system, because it's like, you do a lot of things well, but somehow you don't fit my scheme. It's just it's not really my style. Maybe that's one of the reasons the first couple of years his defense didn't work that well. But then he had Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs basically understands everything. It's like, okay, coach, I see you, I understand you, I know what you're trying to do. Okay, I'll make sure it's done. And he made sure it's done. Okay. Last season, the only game the defense was kind of losing it a little bit was visiting Oregon Ducks. They lost the game. They gave up 34 points, I think, 33. That was the only one. And even in last year's the game, against the team up north, they only gave up 13 points, even when there was the interception that put them in a very bad spot. So the defense was still great last year. A lot of that is because of this man. I would say he was the most valuable player, defensive player on the team last year. And this year is less so, because this year he still relied on, but not as much, because Matt Patricia basically somehow put everybody in the best position. The defensive line is doing their jobs, the linebackers are doing their jobs, the corners are doing their jobs. Then Caleb Downs was basically just like, okay, I'm the general, you guys are all doing your job, so my job is easy. I only do it occasionally. So that's why his tackling number is not that great, which I'm not worried at all. I don't think it diminishes his greatness. It actually enhances that. It means that, the whole defense is functioning at a very high level, and that's just brilliant. So this concludes this very long episode, and my neck still hurts, but somehow it feels better. So, and by the way, if you don't know, I'm in New Zealand, and it's almost summer now. It's springtime, and the sun is out, great clouds, and so I probably should go out and enjoy the weather a little bit. But it's just a lot of players call the last win, this win against the team up north is cathartic, exorcistic, right? You got rid of the demon inside of you. I totally can relate to that. Although I'm way, I'm very much further away from the main scene, Ohio. I haven't been back for almost 2 decades. Less than that, but still. That's why I don't even have a gear, But I have been following the team. I've been following, Jim Tressel, Luke Fickle, Urban Meyer, and now Ryan Day. I think the football program is in great hands in Ryan Day. I just love the man. I love the whole thing he put together. I think currently, they have the best assistant coaches, and the best team. It's not even close. This might go down as the best team ever to play at Ohio State. If you know me, I coach badminton, and in badminton, there's a guy called Lindan. If you don't know, Google him. Just Google him. He's the greatest badminton player ever. Okay, now he won the first Olympic gold medal he won was in 2008 in Beijing, and after that, for the next 2 years, 2008, 2009, 2010,